temptation, I've noticed as I've gotten older and tried to be more conscious about my pitfalls, it seems like temptation's always right there, right? And it's again, it goes back to being disciplined. But like when I make my biggest mistakes, biggest and smallest mistakes, it's usually a temptation that I gave into, right? And that's a really good point. Is that temptation? It doesn't leave the room. Like it lives in your house for the rest of your life. Like if your house is your brain and you're conscious, it's in there. It doesn't just go away. Those temptations are always there, whether that be adultery or alcohol or drugs or crime, whatever the temptation is for you as an individual. What are your thoughts on having the discipline to be able to call out those little temptations and being like, no, you fucker, no, absolutely not. I know what I should be doing. Like, but it seems like it's a constant battle. I mean, I know it is for me, big or small.
James Clear talks quite a bit about this actually in his book Atomic Habits, and I did a podcast not too long ago about I think I called it Tiers of Accountability, something like that. And a lot of people turn to motivation and inspiration, and it's not bad. You know, motivation gets a bad rap. Oh, motivation's stupid. Got to be disciplined. I don't believe that. I think motivation's powerful. You know, if somebody listens to this podcast and they hear something you or I say, and it motivates them to go for a run today, why is that bad? Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with motivation. It's just fleeting. It's not great fuel. It's
Right.
fuel and it'll work, but it burns hot and it burns fast, and you have to keep replenishing the tank. You replace that with discipline, or not even replace, but substitute that, or supplement that is the better way to say it. Supplement with discipline, which is willpower. Okay, here's my goal. And I'm not going to succumb to that. I'm not going to be deterred, and that doesn't matter how I feel. We talked about this when we talked about should versus want, and I'm going to go do it. I'm going to bear down and white knuckle this thing and get it done. That's powerful. That has its place. And then there's a third component. And I think it's one of the most powerful components, and that's having systems and processes in place to ensure that you do what you say you're going to do. So, for example, let's say I plucked you out of your neighborhood right now, and I just dropped you in the middle of the desert, and there's not another soul in sight for 300 miles. Are you going to be disciplined to not drink? No, because there's no alcohol around. Like, that requires zero discipline whatsoever. There's nothing around. Like, you can't drink even if you wanted to.
Right.
So you're not being disciplined. That's now a tactic. So that's what I would suggest is, so for example, with alcohol, keep it out of your house.
Yeah.
That's a small way. Now you don't have to draw upon willpower because it's not even there. It's not even available to you. You know, if you go to, maybe there's a liquor store you normally go to or a gas station you pick up your booze, just don't go to that gas station anymore. James Clear talks about creating friction between where you are and what you don't want in your life. If there's friction there, you're going to be less likely to do it. But then you create, I did another podcast called Friction and Flow. So you have friction against the things you don't want and flow towards the things that you do. So if you want to go to the gym, for example, then you need to grease the grooves. How do you do that? Well, the night before, you should know what your workout is, and you should do that. You should lay your clothes out. You should have your water or your supplements or whatever it is you drink or take in the morning all taken care of. You should know where you're going, what time, all laid out. So now when you get up, there's no excuse. Don't put your cell phone by your bed, because if you do that, then you're just going to roll over and hit snooze. So put it somewhere else in the house. Like, friction and flow, better than motivation, better than discipline, because it requires no willpower. It's just the systems, and you work the systems.
That's a great point. With alcohol specifically, the best thing I did was just, it's not here. So even those really hard days when I'm like, screw it, I'm going to have a beer. I'm like, shit, there's no beer. And so when people reach out to me, they're like, how did you start? I'm like, well, get it the hell out of your house. That would be a great way to start, because then you don't have a choice unless you like go to the store. That's another problem to deal with. But or if it's maybe there's other situations that are tempting for you. Well, don't put yourself in those situations. That would be a great way to start, which is also really hard to do, because it's a temptation to put yourself in the situation of temptation. So it's like this, you can follow it all the way back. But to your point, that's a really good point. Friction and flow. So you think